Boom shakalaka, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters around the world. It is your boy Crucial, aka the Esoteric Noetic, aka the Chocolate Nubian Soul Brother. Now we got a special guest here on the Crucial Journey podcast. We got Chris Nelson. I'm just about to get him now on this Zoom interview. Now, Chris is many things. This guy is a truth seeker. He's a fellow non-carnist, non-statist. He's all about spreading the word, the wisdomatic truth bombs. Anyway, we're going to get him to introduce himself. Let's rock. Chris Nelson, my brother, how you doing? Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Fantastic. Coming in loud and clear. I was just introducing you, brother, and then I thought I would probably let you introduce yourself. But bro, I just want to start off by saying thank you so much for taking the time out to do this thing, man. I've been following your work actually for quite a number of years. I've been watching the YouTube videos and checking out the posts, but I didn't put the name together when I noticed you dropping some posts on my my little group there. But bro, I'm a big fan of your work. I know you're a big student of the natural law of disseminating those truth bombs in regards to what's going on all these different levels, the philosophy, the metaphysics, the science, the technology. You're on the Hive blockchain, which I'm all down with. I think that's really important now, considering there's so much censorship going on social media with the Facebook, YouTube. I'm not sure if you're finding issues with that, but I certainly have been. But brother, first and foremost, man, how you doing? What's happening in your world?
I'm all right. Yeah, thanks for having me for a chat. And not much going on. Like I've told you, I'm looking to buy a house, so I'm busy with all that stuff. And bought a car I shouldn't have, so I'm gonna look to sell that. Yeah,
Sure, sure.
just some posts on Hive and censorship resistance is what Hive has. It's not censorship proof, but it's highly resistant because your content will always be there. And some front ends, like I don't know if it still happens on Hive, but on Steemit, if you got flagged too much, like your post would be like hidden or grayed
Sure.
out, and comments get hidden too if they get flagged. Then you just have to like click on it to show it. So there's like still like front ends that take in consideration the downvote flagging and then like reduce the visibility of stuff. And that's what
Sure.
also flagging does with the trending page. People go there. I don't look at it, but people are attracted to the trending page,
Mhm.
and the highest rewarded stuff is what people see. So when you do get downvoted, well, your visibility goes down. So
Yeah, that's a
it
really good
reduces the
distinction.
visibility, but it's never gone. It's always there.
Sure, because you made the distinction there between resistance and censorship, and just for people that might be listening to this for the first time, uh, Chris and I we post a lot on the Hive blockchain, and essentially it's a platform for posting content. It's like a social media, but at least I believe it is, and yeah, it's one of these things where, granted, you're not censored per se. You're not going to have one big entity taking down your posts like is happening with YouTube. Depending on whether or not the community approves of the content through the system of voting that that we have, your content may or not be more visible. And I think that's at least the fairest system I can think of at this point in time. But there's definitely a lot of improvements we can make on it. So I understand you've been having. In fact, I've started having a few issues. My first probably issue with Hive, just in terms of how you see things can be voted down and things can work against you. But perhaps we can start off by talking a bit about Hive and just some of the issues that we've come across. I mean, have you? I mean, I understand you've been on this thing since 2016. Was it all smooth sailing, or when was the first time you came across some roadblocks of that?
Yeah, I joined on August 8th or something, 2016, and it was great. I started posting some of my work. First, I started with like super long posts, but then I reduced the length, and that was more appealing. And I posted about Steam. Steam succeeds if we make it succeed. So I was all about helping to change the world and using the blockchain to help change the world by putting out valuable information that can expose the deceptions and lies and through that exposure, then we can work towards not allowing that to continue in order to create something better. So that's what
Hmm.
my view was. Other people didn't agree, but the founder, Dan Larimer, who coded the blockchain, he appreciated my work. So I got successful through support from him and another one of the developers at Steam It Inc.
Oh wow! So
And
I wasn't actually aware of that. So the founder of Steam, by the way, which was the original gangster, so to speak, essentially, Hive was what came out of Steam. Essentially, there was a fork, and but originally you were posting on Steam, and the creator of Steam, I've heard his name, Dan Larimer. So he's an anarchist, I believe, as well.
yeah,
Sure. So I guess that's the way that
well,
this.
semi-anarchist, I guess. He adheres to a lot of the philosophies, but he still, I guess,
Sure,
supports like direct democracy and some types of things like that. So, but
sure.
he's not very pro-government.
Yeah, I'm glad you make the distinction there because I realize that first of all, a lot of times people use different terms in order to define their political alignment, and we often have a misunderstanding in regards to what they actually mean when they say these things. And then there's also like a spectrum, you know, like there are some people that call themselves anarchists, but aren't really the kind of anarchists that I would associate with anarchism, like they're narco-communists. And anyway, point is I think we're generally on the same page, at least with you and I, with Dan Larimer, that essentially we want more freedom, more sovereignty, and less of the state controlling what we do. Right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So yeah, I was just about to say, you were one of the original gangsters, I guess, that got a lot of support from the creator, and I guess that would have helped you spread a lot of information. I mean, is this something that you've been wanting to do for a long time, or is it something that you fell into? I mean, how did you get started making these posts on Steam and or on YouTube? Is it how did you fall into that whole line of work?
Um, well, through my journey, starting in 2006, Alex Jones, and then on from there and developing and starting with 9/11. Eventually, I got to Mark Passio, and the depth of that work inspired me to do my own work and my own site. So I just started that at like the end of November 2013, and 2014 was the year I did a lot of work, and I wasn't working at the time, but that's the work that I did was the great work, and so eventually I started off with text, and then I eventually got into some audio, and then doing video of the audio with the infographics because I was doing infographics with the text. So the last big one was the higher consciousness apotheosis was the last original presentation I did in 2016. And then I found Steam through a Facebook post, you know, following people on there, the anarchistic and whatever. And there was
Mm-hmm.
Jeff Berwick who posted that he made like $11,000 on one post or something.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, what the hell is this? So I checked it out and I signed up, and yeah, people were making lots of money. Obviously, when you join, you don't make lots of money, but if you get support from people who have money, then you can end up getting rewarded. So that's what happened with me through what I was writing about, and Larimer supported a lot of my earlier work.
Sure. That's
Um,
that's an amazing journey, man. I see a lot of parallels there, not just between my journey, but I think like there's a general theme you see how people get involved in crypto. I mean, as I'm sure you're aware, a lot of the original movers of crypto were libertarian leaning anarchists essentially, and I think there's this philosophical movement behind this kind of stuff. I mean, you started off obviously questioning what was going on in the world. You know, like a lot of us, we start off with Alex Jones. I mean, back in the late '90s, I was a huge fan of Alex as well. And then you move into other figures, Mark Passio, and so forth. But then you somewhere down the line discover Bitcoin, and there's this entire movement. The interesting thing is how, I mean, one of the things I've noticed, and I'd love to hear your experience with this as well, is that granted you start off in a community and they're like-minded people within that community, as the community gets bigger, as I've seen with Bitcoin, you find the original idea behind this movement diverging off. Like you find that at the moment, it's not just the freedom loving individuals that are on Bitcoin. Essentially, it's become mainstream, right? And as a result, you find a lot more people that don't have the same kind of views advocating for the things that you're not in line with. And I think I think that tends to be the theme with most ideologies, in the sense that once they become saturated, people tend to go off in different tangents, and then somewhere down the line, the uh, the group kind of gets a hold of a different idea. And I find that that's a common thing that I've been experiencing, even to some extent, perhaps with Hive. Have you had any kind of experience like that? Like, I presume you've been in. How long have you been in crypto for?
That's thanks to Steam.
Steam.
So
All right,
that's
2016.
yeah,
Sure.
it's I don't regret ever getting involved in it. It definitely helped me greater financial independence. And
Sure.
I had bought some Bitcoin, but then I wasted a lot of it in stupid trading. So I was
Mhm.
against trading. I viewed it as like gambling, but then I got into it like an idiot and never. I didn't do it carefully, and yeah. So that
I
was
think
when
we
Bitcoin
all.
was like 600, and then I spent away like 10 Bitcoin or
Mhm.
something like that in
I'm yet to
stupid
hear of.
forex trading.
Sure, I'm yet to hear of someone that started off early in Bitcoin and hasn't made some kind of mistake in terms of doing something they wish they hadn't done. Like losing their money. I think it's all part of the learning process.
Yeah,
Even Roger Ver, like he's lost a lot of. He's probably lost a lot of money. In fact, I've heard him talk about this uh, by misplacing coins and so forth. So it's part of the process. I've been involved in a few silly programs as well in the crypto space. Like with the cloud mining and things like that, and then not being able to gain access to my funds and so forth. But we all learn. We all learn from that. And so, just in regards to the community, I mean, you've obviously been involved in the community for a long while. Have you seen any big changes? I mean, what's the main change that you're seeing at the moment with what's going on with the people involved, and I guess everything externally, going on in the world?
yeah. Like you said, things start off smaller. So at the onset, there's more people who are geared towards, I guess, a pseudo anarchistic mentality of more doing what they want or financial freedom outside of the legacy system.
Mm-hmm.
And even within those people, like early on, they didn't really care about this. They wanted mainstream adoption because what they want, like a lot of the prominent people,
Mm-hmm. More
they
money.
wanted mainstream adoption
Yeah.
so that people could buy your token, so that the token gains value, so that they end up rich as well. So I ended up getting downvoted when I was putting out my original content on. I forget what the first post that I took on one of the whales. It was like on something about like truth and consciousness or morality or something, and then they were like, this content does not help to benefit Steam and bringing in new users. So they downvoted it and took away rewards and then took it off the main like single view of the trending page. So it went below like the 10 or 12 initial top 10, 12 posts. And then I
Yeah.
was like gonna do nothing. And then I was like, well, why the hell should I just sit here and just let that happen? Like, so I took on the whale, and then another one came after me because they didn't like Dan,
So
and
how'd you
Dan was
take on the
upvoting my
whale? When
content.
Sorry,
A
Chris, how
whale
do you,
is like
I mean, I know
super
what a whale is,
wealthy,
but
yeah,
when you say you
people.
took on the whale, like were you
Well,
when
I
you
called him out, and I like said, "What do you mean this isn't valuable? Of course it's valuable. This is information that can help awaken people, and they can gain knowledge about
sure
themselves."
argumentative, yeah.
And but this is why there's like a lot of closed-minded people who don't care about that because they just care about mainstream adoption, and the
Mm-hmm.
mainstream doesn't care about this information. That's why we're in the position we're in the world, is because people don't really value this information. So Dan valued it, other people valued it, it got upvoted. This other rich guy who was Ninja Mind. So early on in Steam, there was like some people who knew about it, and you got to mine it. There's no more mining now, but early on people got to mine it. So they got to mine like millions of tokens,
Hmm.
and so they became like the super wealthy whales.
I wasn't actually aware of that. So you
And
can actually mine the steam at a point. It was
yeah,
because
early on, that's uh,
ah.
how a lot of these like ninja mined. They call ninja mine because it just like came out really quick, and they were like the only ones who did it, and it was complicated. And anyway, so they ended up with a
Mhm.
lot of stake, and they got to influence a lot of the rewards or take away rewards if they didn't think that you deserve them, which is still the case now. Um, so yeah, that's what happened back then. And then, like I said, Dan and other people supported me, and then some people don't like Dan despite what he created and them benefiting from it, so they attacked him. One of them was this Bernie Sanders asshole who's still on me now, and he's
Hmm.
not the real Bernie Sanders. That's just the name he
That's
took.
yeah.
And then
I
he had
figured that much. Yeah.
multiple accounts with lots of stake everywhere, and so he hated Dan, and Dan voted me. So he downvoted my content just because Dan voted it. So then I took him on to, and then I got downvoted even more after that because I dared to call him out for his bullshit. He has like a childish mentality, like he's a bully. So because I confronted him and called him out, then he like became an even bigger bully. So since then, I've been flagged for downvoted for 4 years on like say 90% of my content, and
Mm.
probably the users had the most rewards taken from them in USD value in the past, the existence of Steam slash Hive. And the reason Hive became Hive instead of Steam is like a year ago, there was Justin Sun from the Tron blockchain.
Hmm.
The other co-founder of Steam was Ned something. I don't remember his last name, but he's he wasn't the brains. Dan was the brains. The guy was philosophically inclined, and Ned was, I don't know. I don't want to call him an idiot, but yeah, he wasn't. He didn't. He doesn't know very much, and he just squandered like the opportunity. And for the
Hmm.
past 3 years afterwards, after he pushed Dan out, Dan left and went and formed EOS. Ned basically did nothing, and so he was going to sell off Steam to Justin Son of Tron, because the Hive witnesses wanted to take the Steam and Inc. funds that they had millions of stake in,
Hmm.
millions of dollars, and they wanted to use it to pay for development. And Ned was like, "No, that's my stake," which it was his because it's his. It wasn't theirs. It was Steam and Inc.'s. It belonged to them. So
Sure.
Hive witnesses, like who became Hive witnesses when they were at Steam. I view this thing as like all misguided. They didn't follow the ownership of property. It wasn't their property, but they wanted to take it from. They wanted to take that property from the company, which is retarded in my book.
Hmm.
So Ned saw this coming, and he didn't want to like end up just losing out on his millions that he's squandering, and he just wanted it for himself anyway. So that's what he did. He sold it to Justin's son. Son didn't know what he was getting into. There was still the threats of like taking the stake away. So Sun got like big big exchanges in China like Ubit and or Upbit and Binance to come in as witnesses, which he upvoted. And then they didn't know how it worked either. Like, the whole staking your tokens for, I don't know if at that time it was still for 2 years or if it was 13 months, but you lock in the value. So since these exchanges had those tokens on their exchanges, they used them to and in the governance model of the chain to vote themselves as witnesses. So there was this whole hostile takeover with Justin Sun from Tron and the other exchanges in order to vote out the top witnesses, which were community supported, even though they were misguided in their whole attempt to steal the funds from Steemit Inc. Um, they wanted to use that for better purposes, but it still just doesn't justify what they were trying to do. And so Sun he did push them out. And that's when they formed Hive. They created Hive. And
Sure.
Block Trades was one of the big people, big stake owners. And he went into Hive. And then Hive froze out some of the people in Steam because everyone got airdropped. You got the same amount of tokens you had before, unless you were like part of the people who were part of the hostile takeover.
Hmm.
And then so they didn't let those people have the Hive token. And then in response, the Hive witnesses, which Justin's son, he votes them all up. He decides who the witnesses are and supports them. Whoever supports him, he'll support. So if you don't support his policy, well, you lose his witness vote and then you don't become a witness. So he tried to
Sure.
pretend that he wasn't influencing the witnesses, that it was all the witnesses doing their own thing. But then as soon as like you had 2, 3, 4 decide, no, I'm not going to support this, oh, guess what, they're no longer witnesses. So basically it's you become a top 19 witness if you do what Justin's son wants. That's basically the agreement, even though
Sure.
they won't deny it.
I'm
But
I'm
that's
really starting to understand how the politics of this plays into the crypto space. I mean, the interesting thing about this story, by the way, thank you so much for this, because I feel like a lot of people are going to watch this, don't understand one, how Hive works, and don't understand that there's this entire political movement going through. And for someone like me that's really interested in the kind of the political scene, the religious scene, I see this tremendous theme between what's going on with the crypto space, the Hive blockchain, Bitcoin, and what's happened in the realm of various religions. Because you suddenly see this big there being this idea, like you have a look at the Christian religion, just as a sidetrack here, about how there was an esoteric school of thought, Gnosticism, this very different idea to what is perpetuated now, and then over time, this thing gets adopted by the masses. It starts being obfuscated. There are there are various versions that are rewritten, and then eventually there are takeover, these hostile takeovers. But even on a more practical level, just how we see certain individuals influencing the space, like the same thing that's happening with YouTube at the moment in terms of content. People can't say certain things, most likely because there are certain influencers that are or certain individuals, without naming any figures, that are obviously paying us a certain amount of money to YouTube, the corporation, and influencing the kind of content that is going to be on the platform. And it's the same theme, I think, that we're finding in the crypto space, because essentially this whole thing was supposed to be not just a movement about making money. In fact, I'd make the argument that essentially it was about trying to bring back the freedom to individuals. Like the first movers of Bitcoin were people that wanted to move away from the fiat system and essentially not be taxed by the government per se. And then over time, we found ourselves in this situation where a lot of people have adopted Bitcoin, Hive, and now they're advocating for the same things that the governmental system was supporting. Trying to have this situation where we have like a socialist uh, tyranny, so to speak. Do you kind of get what I'm saying?
yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
man.
people. That's why the reason it's worth so much is because mainstream influx of the fiat money of the hedge funds and all these other people. Like this year, even in 2017, when the first big uptick in crypto happened, there was
Mm-hmm.
like a mini rush from the mainstream. It's happening bigger now, I guess, because of DeFi, decentralized finance from Ethereum from the
Mm-hmm.
past year, and now
What a
the
big
Binance
deal.
side chain has it with they're doing their own thing
Sure.
as a
Because I got
fork of
involved.
Ethereum.
I got involved during the big surge around 2017, where a friend of mine, Lewis Mack, shout out to Lewis, he'll probably check this out. He was very
Yeah,
involved.
I know him from
Yeah,
Facebook.
I thought you might. Yeah, sure. And he found me through YouTube, and we kind of have the same kind of philosophical understanding and so forth. And whereas I'd always been familiar with Bitcoin, I come from a tech space like yourself, and most of my friends in uni were obsessed with this kind of stuff. I never thought about actually getting it, and I didn't really see the connection, the strong connection with freedom at the time, and kind of seeing other people like Lewis get involved in it. I eventually got involved with it. And once I get into something, I go deep, and I became obsessed with it. 2017, I basically, I think I pretty much just stopped my music for several months, and I was just obsessed learning everything about Bitcoin, about the history, about the politics, and I went through so many books, not even relating to Bitcoin, just on Austrian economics and a whole bunch of stuff. But the point is, I feel like a lot of people have gotten into this thing relatively late. And whereas, granted, my philosophical leanings have been more in line with what I would say this thing was initially about, most of the normies that have gotten involved in this thing, they take on the same philosophy that essentially brought out this entire system, which is this philosophy of, oh, let's do whatever the state tells us to do, and let's just go along with it, and it's all for the greater good kind of thing, as opposed to wanting to bring back the freedom to the individuals. You know what I mean? And I think we're at a point now where we're seeing a lot of the same issues that have come about in the governmental system slowly make its way into the crypto space. And I think one of the things I like about your work is you delve into the heart of this problem. And this is one of the reasons I think you're being attacked. It's ideological, right? I mean, ultimately, you believe in the philosophy of freedom, sovereignty. You believe in
Yeah.
truth, not this moral relativistic, the government can tell you to do whatever it wants you to do for the greater good kind of nonsense. And that's what you're trying to address. Whereas a lot of people are obviously just caught up in just like a short term way of just keeping themselves afloat, not being taxed and being able to make money for themselves. And I'd love to get into the heart of like what you do and what this is about, because I notice a huge part of your content, which obviously is all connected to why this thing's happening, why you're getting attacked, is the stuff that you're putting out in terms of pro freedom, against the state. You're obviously a big fan of natural law. Do you want to talk about that a bit, man? You mentioned that you became like really involved in the, I guess, the freedom movement. That's what I'd call it. And I guess this was around the 9/11 slash Mark Passio. Like you mentioned, you've gone through a lot of certain uh, figures and transformations, and just in regards to the work you're doing, man. Like what's the main stuff that you focus on?
My main, the core part of my site, evolveconsciousness.org,
Mm-hmm.
is around morality, natural moral law, or simply natural law, and truth, consciousness. Yeah, so it's truth and consciousness and morality. That's pretty much the focus. And like I said, I was doing like 5-7 hour presentations based on things I was thinking about to try to explain in greater depth.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Creating infographics and then doing presentations to explain it all in greater depth. And the last big one I did was in 2016, and that was right before I got into Steam. And then since I got into that, I got attracted to the earning, being rewarded for putting out content. So I didn't work on the big projects anymore, and I was doing smaller stuff.
Sure.
In between, like now and back to 2016, the end of 2016 into 2017, and even last year, I was doing some videos and stuff, but they were like a half hour long or something like that, um, describing things like the pleasure trap, or um, what I call the circle of life, or the wheel of life, of like the trivium
Samsara. Mm-hmm.
with causality and morality and truth, and how that all fits together and intertwines. Um, but I did a lot of small posts too. And when COVID hit and that became more serious at the end of March, like I was just ignoring it. And my partner, she was believing in it. And I was like, okay, well, let me look into it there, because I'm pretty sure there's nothing too serious.
Mm-hmm.
So I started looking into it at the end of March. And then I started doing posts again, because I was like, okay, this is all a bunch of bullshit. So I just started posting again. I hadn't been posting for like 6 months or
Mm-hmm.
something. I was like, whatever. I finally got, I was working, and then, yeah, I got laid off. Oh, maybe that's why, because I got laid off at the end of November. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go back on the blockchain again to try to earn
Sure.
some money.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, then I just focused completely on the COVID bullshit, the scamdemic,
Yeah,
and
man.
yeah, the
Yeah, man.
flags, the downvoting came back.
It's
And then I'm
interesting
like,
that this is going on the blockchain as well, because whereas this is going on obviously on YouTube and Facebook, Understandably, yeah, without going into detail, I think it makes sense that they
Yeah, but
want to have
I'm
this
unique because I have this hatred from this one guy, this Bernie Sanders character,
Sure,
who's been on my ass since 2017. So it's been 4 years of downvotes. So
sure,
that's why I'm getting targeted by him.
sure.
And the other Cure Angel one, I didn't know it was him, but I'm pretty sure it's him now because
Hmm.
I saw that when I came back like 3 weeks ago after not posting for a few months again.
Hmm.
The Cure Angel account was downvoting me months ago, along with the Bernie Sanders guy. And when I came back, the Cure Angel started up, and then I looked and I saw that the Bernie Sanders guy from his various accounts increased his delegation to Cure Angel. I'm like, oh, okay, that's why he's leveraging them
Connecting it all.
again as a
Sure,
delegator to submit my posts for downvoting,
sure. But this
because
isn't
they have
just a
this
couple of
policy of
people,
like,
right?
oh, if
Oh,
you've been auto voted and your post is rewarded too much,
mhm,
we're Cure Angels, and we're
mhm.
going to make the blockchain better by downvoting the posts that are being rewarded too much. But it's like they don't care about the content. Like, the content does matter to me, and I'm putting it out, and
Exactly.
it is. It's not to toot my own horn, but if someone else was doing it, it'd be the same thing. But the content is more valuable than
Exactly. It's
99% of
it's
the
great
content that's
content,
there.
man. Like I'll
People's pictures and whatever, they did this recipe. Like, yeah, recipes are cool and whatever, and everyone can post whatever they want. And if people value it, they could reward it. But some people
sure.
don't agree with that. They want to be the what I call the content reward police, which was the issue back in 2017 when I went after the whales. Is that they want to be the content reward police. So they want to evaluate the content, and they want to say, oh, well, you're being rewarded too much for that content, and I disagree with the rewards. So I'm going to remove the rewards from that content. So you're not
Exactly.
going to get all those rewards. You're going to get whatever rewards I decide you're allowed to get based on how much money I have. Because what it is,
Hmm.
it's not an ideal system. It's just, it can enable you to have greater financial freedom, which I'm grateful for. I'm glad I found Steemit. I'm glad I'm still on Hive. Sometimes I leave and sometimes I come back based on my own whims, and getting tired of being flagged is
So
sometimes
you
some of it.
just to start, you
But
use both Steam and Hive at the moment? Like they're
no,
both
no, no. I'm out of Steam. I should have
okay.
not sold. I like powered down last year or something. I don't
Yeah, I did the
remember when.
same. I did the
I
same.
powered down and I sold it all. It was probably still good because Bitcoin wasn't worth as much. So if I
Hmm.
powered down now and I sold it, I'd still probably get the same amount of Bitcoin. But so whatever. But Steam now is doing well because basically Steam is like, Justin's son is Asian. Basically now Steam is like pretty much an Asian blockchain, as I view it. If you go look at their top communities, like the top ones are like Asian ones.
Okay.
So it's pretty much like, if
More
you're
corporate from what
the
I
most of the
understand.
community from Steam, like the original community, left and came to Hive
Sure.
because they understood the hostile takeover part. And I don't excuse what the Hive witnesses tried to do to confiscate the stake of Steemit Inc., the company who owned that stake, to try to
Mhm.
steal it from them. Um,
Sure.
they wanted to do something better with it, but it still didn't justify it. But anyways, when they left, a lot of the community left with them. So the core of the original community is on Hive, and some stayed on Steam. And Steam now is largely a lot Asian, Korean, whatever. Um, so yeah, if you try to do what I'm doing on Steam, you're not going to get the support because I'm on Hive and I support the content that I like that does similar to the stuff that I write about, which I'm not doing right now because, like I said, I didn't tell it to you, but I told someone else on a comment that I was like, okay, because I didn't understand that it was this Bernie Sanders guy coming after me, leveraging Cure Angel. So I was like, oh, I'll try to post something about something else. I'll try to just post about financial stuff. So that's why I'm just
Yeah.
posting on Leo Finance.
And you still got
But yeah, after a
downvoted.
week of posting,
Uh,
he picked up. He must have seen. Oh, Colonel is on the top of trending again. I better start flagging it. So he started submitting my post. I'm pretty sure it's him, anyways. Someone
mhm.
started submitting my posts, and I got like 3, 4 posts, something like 4 or 5 posts or something that I got the rewards for. And then after that, since then, every single one of my posts gets downvoted by Cure Angel, which is a multi-million uh, stake delegated account
I see.
that
Well, look,
leverages the
I've taken the
delegations
liberty
to.
of going through quite a few of the comments, on the posts. In fact, all the comments on the post in regards to you calling this stuff out, what's going on. And if I was to steelman the position of these stakeholders, I think that they're called like Cure Angel and so forth, and obviously they are trying to to make sure that the content is of good quality, and therefore what they're doing in their mind is justified. However, you have a look at their arguments, right? That it's about the content, the quality of the content, and clearly they're just downvoting it because they don't like the actual content. Now, granted, value is subjective. The sheer fact that they're downvoting your stuff, even though it's well formed. I mean, a lot of the arguments you typically hear when something is not good quality is that, oh, people are you're just spamming, you're not putting any real information out. But I think anyone that was being impartial that looked at your post, because I actually read quite a number of people's posts and so forth, and there are people like me. I mean, in fairness, I typically just put a video up. I don't put that much content, if any, and I think it's pretty fair for someone to say that I would be spamming to some extent. But with you, your content is actually legitimate, man. I mean, you go into detail talking about the issues that you're passionate about, freedom, truth, consciousness, all this kind of stuff. And the only reason I think, in fairness, that the stuff is getting downvoted is because people do not like the actual content that you're talking about. And I would say that you're more than anyone I know. I think you're being downvoted consistently, and I think to me, what I first saw was that, okay, it looks like this guy is getting paid a lot, understandably, because you've been doing this thing for a lot of time. A lot of people value your work, and there's some people that have a case of tall poppy syndrome and are saying you're getting paid too much, so I'm going to take away some of your votes here. But then the further you look, like you're saying, you realize that this thing is ideological, that it's not just the fact that you're getting paid so much, because there are other people that get paid quite a lot. However, because we're talking about something that perhaps in the community, and I guess this is the tricky thing, because at the end of the day, the way I see it, as long as the community still has this mindset, and granted, you're saying it's just a couple of, maybe a few people, specifically with you, that are downvoting you. I think it is representative of the fact that there are quite a number of people, even in the high blockchain, that are against this idea of freedom, liberty, which I would have thought is the fundamental basis of what this whole revolution is about. And
Yeah, well,
as a
they
result,
don't value it that much. Like,
yeah,
I'm pretty sure it's just
the
one
world doesn't
guy
value
who's
it that much.
leveraging his delegation. I explained the problem with delegations. Like, these
Sure.
accounts don't actually own it, but they're using the stake that's been delegated to them to downvote content like mine or other people, like when they found yours and Press for Truth. Um, like the no name guy, he goes after it, and
Yeah.
he uh, he viewed it as spam because it wasn't hosted on Hive. But you know, uh, because it wasn't hosted on a site that uses the Hive blockchain. So that's basically their argument. Because you're putting it on Odyssey, well, that's not on Hive, so therefore it's spam. But when you look at the content, if you go look at the actual blockchain, you'll see a bunch of text, and the video is not stored there. There is no video on Hive. So when you go to 3Speak, the video is not on Hive. The text is on Hive, like as a database on the blockchain,
Mm-hmm.
but the video is hosted somewhere else through 3Speak. They pay to host servers, and when you post to 3Speak, a portion of your rewards, like 8% or 9% or something, they take that as a benefactor, a beneficiary, and that's how they help pay for their operating costs. So that's fine if you agree with it, and you go post there and you agree to that arrangement that I get to post here on a censorship resistant platform, and my video is hosted there, and it has less chance of being taken down than on YouTube or whatever.
Sure.
But when you look at the actual content, the text, if you put text that doesn't go on 3Speak as a video, and then you do the same text and you put it on 3Speak, it'll be the exact same content. It's just that 3Speak is Odyssey isn't on the Hive blockchain. So it's like this whole, oh, you have to be on using Hive in order to benefit from the short content or the video that you're putting. Even though the video isn't itself on Hive, it's hosted by a site that runs as a company which puts its videos on another server, but that company and that site uses only Hive. So this is like that guy's mentality, and other people is that that's the Hive value, that it has to be on Hive, and if it's exclusive to Hive, then it's even more valuable because then it forces people to come here. But those people, those of us who are wanting to get our information out to more people, like you and Press for Truth and
Sure.
Luke We Are Change and the other people that I vote up, they're just interested in getting the information to more people.
Yeah. Like if I
So
can
Hive
just
has a
say,
benefit where you can earn something. And if I
I
want to reward you for putting your content there, then why can't I be allowed to reward you if it's my stake and I can do that? But that's why there's this whole like mentality of, no, I don't agree and I'm going to be the governor. It's like this whole statism applied to the blockchain where you get to
exactly.
decide how everything's applied. So I'm not getting, like I said, I'm pretty sure I'm getting just downvoted by one guy who's leveraging the flaw in the delegation system. And then there's other people who support it because for them it's just blind. Well, it's your stake. You get to do what you decide. So if you want to downvote someone, well, it's your stake. That's your right. And if you want to upvote someone, that's your stake and that's your right. But
Hmm.
I view it differently. I view that as um, a supporting ideological abuse or um, maleficent intentions. Like the guy doesn't like me, so he just downvotes everything that I have and leverages
Yeah.
this
I
the way
think
the
it
mechanism of Hive works in order to get me downvoted. And other
absolutely.
people just support it because, well, that's the way it works. There was this whole mentality back in 2016, 2017 when the flagging was going on first, that
Mhm.
code equals law. Whatever the code says, well, that's the law and that's what's acceptable.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
but the
familiar
code
with
can
that
be
whole
changed.
argument.
You can
Yeah.
change it. And anyways, so there's this whole support of like anyone can downvote anything as much as they want because they have the stake. So this is what I was trying to get at before. It's a plutocratic system. You know, plutocracy is ruled by wealth, ruled by money. And that's what it is. It's like a corporation where you have your stake, you have your stock, that's your stake in the company, and whoever has 51% gets to decide everything because they have 51%. So if you have 51% of the stakeholders in Hive decide to do something, well, they're going to make it happen.
Hmm.
So it's all ruled by your stake, and that's how witnesses get supported into the top 19. It's the amount of cumulative stake of all the individual accounts that are voted to put those people in the top 19 positions, and they get to approve or disapprove of code changes in hard forks. So hard
Mm.
fork 25 is going to be coming up, so that's changes. And if they wouldn't agree with it, well, they could say no and not update the code. And then those who did, and then there'd be like a battle between which code is going to be updated. So that's how you end up with forks like Ethereum. There's Ethereum and then Ethereum Classic. And so those things can happen, but they don't really happen.
Sure.
They pretty
So
much just go
just for the
along with
viewers that
the
might be checking this out, I mean, there's a lot of inside baseball in this conversation at the moment. But I think, in short, I think what we're seeing is the same kind of political nonsense that goes on in the actual world is happening on the blockchain. A lot of people kind of look at these things as being two separate things, but essentially they're still representing the law of mentalism. In my mind, the fact that what we are seeing, whether it's the physical space, this Euclidean meat space I like to refer to as, or whether we're seeing this in the cyberspace, people tend to you tend to see things flourishing that the general consensus want to flourish. And at the moment, I would argue that the majority of people, it seems from my experience, want to have a situation where people have less freedom, less individuality, and in individual sovereignty, if you know what I mean. And as a result, we're
Mhm.
seeing this play out, and we're seeing the same kind of tricks that are used in politics, same kind of let's downplay someone's ability to do whatever they want, whether it's whether it's their content or whether it's their ability to live their own life, because the majority says that they don't have the right to their life, kind of thing. And it's fascinating to me, someone that is interested in philosophy, religion, and in technology, to see the same stuff play out in the world of blockchain right now. And I think what's happening with this pandemic is interesting. I think there's a similar dynamic in the fact that there are so many people that are obviously against this narrative and are doing everything in their power to prevent a narrative from coming into the fore. And granted, they're trying to be fair. I mean, obviously, you're on YouTube and you're seeing what's. I'm not sure if you've been flagged. I've been struck twice on YouTube in the space of a couple of months, been on YouTube for 7 years, first time. And this stuff is happening because these people, once again, don't like the content that you're putting out. Not because, in my opinion, you said something that is actually false. There are videos I've made where I haven't even spoken about anything medical, but I just presented the opinion, not even my opinion, but from someone else that I don't, they're not going to take the vaccine, right? And as a result, the video gets flagged, the video gets taken down.
Yeah, it's all
And
about control of information.
it is. And I would have liked to see, I mean, you mentioned that most of us, at least a lot of us, are advocating for these cryptocurrencies because we don't like the state. We don't want the state. We don't like taxation, that whole kind of thing. But um, the other thing, at least for me, is that I want to see people move away from these legacy platforms like YouTube and Facebook, and that's why I support Odyssey. I'm not sure if you're following what's been going on with them, but they are flourishing, and because they've been flourishing, they have been attacked by the I think the FCE and essentially
SEC, because
SEC.
they view it as a security.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just bad with the acronyms and so forth. But essentially, it's pretty obvious that they're being attacked. They're being called out for something that's just absolutely ridiculous, because ultimately they're questioning. It's an alternative form of media that is where people are allowed to question the narrative, and because the powers to be, so to speak, don't like the narrative in question, they're getting targeted. And we're seeing this thing play out in all levels of information right now. There really is, in my opinion, a spiritual war that is taking place. I mean, you want to say if you want to say it's a war on consciousness, fair enough. But ultimately, we have people that are advocating for more choice, more freedom, and those that are advocating for less choice, less freedom, less
Yeah,
freedom
more
of
slavery.
information. Yeah, more slavery. And we have a look at history, and it's always been the case. You don't find the people on the right side of history saying, "Oh, we don't like your we saying the people that are on the right side of his history, they typically advocate for more freedom, right? More choice. And the people that are on the wrong side are wanting to burn the books and say that because there's the potential for you to harm people, we're going to take away all your freedom. And it's just a fascinating dynamic. And I think this is I think both you and I, one of the things I loved about your work is that you're highlighting the root cause of this problem rather than just addressing the what does Thoreau say? The problem with with the world is that too many people that are swiping at the branches of evil, as opposed to focusing
The
on the root
roots. Yeah.
cause. Yeah, on the roots. And I think whereas I think a lot of people may have a cursory glance at your work, freedom and morality, it's like, oh, come on, man, I want to focus on things that can change the world, and don't think that's an issue, and don't somehow see the fact that the reason that there is so much of an issue with what's going on is this morally relativistic governmentalist system that can force you to do anything it wants to do, and they don't see that being the real cause of the problem. And one of the things that frustrates me is I see a lot of people advocating for freedom, but they don't understand that fundamentally they're still very pro-government in the fact that they think the government should have the right to tax you. They somehow support this morally relativistic idea that laws can be arbitrarily created, but they think freedom is just their ability to have more power in the world. Like I want to have the freedom
Yeah.
to be able to go on vacations, but they don't realize that freedom has to do with objective standards. It's about freedom for everyone, not just for the black people or the brown people or the whatever color people. It's about equality for all, right?
Yeah. Well, they don't have. There's a lot of ignorance and
Mm-hmm.
false knowledge, negative knowledge, which is things that are false and assumed to be true.
Mm-hmm.
And then you think that's knowledge, but it's just information you've taken and adopted it into the foundational construct of your base layer to walk on as reality. So you move through the world and move through reality, and you have a ground to walk on, and that's your reality. As a metaphor, the ground is your reality, and so you don't want to have holes anywhere. So you think you're walking on solid foundation, but what they actually have is cracks in their foundation and rotting foundation because they don't understand principles by which to live by.
That's a
So
beautiful
they
analogy.
want to advocate for things like freedom or justice, but they don't actually understand what the underpinnings are of that, and that is objective morality and the importance of truth, the
Mm.
supreme importance of truth, and more so moral truth, in order to establish a proper foundation, in order to build everything else upon. So that's why, we have government and we have all these things, because these foundations, which is what I've sought to delve deeper into and explain with more details, to provide that greater clarity and depth of understanding. So that's one of the earlier goals I had, and yeah, getting into crypto was like diverged me from that, and I've gone back to it a bit, but yeah, ended up getting focused on trying to establish more financial independence, and
Well,
it's
they're all
worked out.
connected, I think, in the sense that
Yeah, they're all
yeah,
connected, and I've
but that's
managed to
powerful.
reach more people than just doing my work on my site and posting to Facebook or YouTube, which didn't get many views. Gotten
Sure.
a lot more people to pay attention through Steam and now Hive.
Yeah,
So
that's all. I know you have quite a number of followers on the Hive blockchain, man. You're doing very well, and I can see you're very influential. And the thing that annoys me is that you've spent a lot of time, like you were one of these people that's posting essentially every day, twice even, a day. And
I used to post 4 times a day, but that
well,
was
there
on
you
like
go. That's insane,
lighter,
man.
fluffier stuff, because I was like, well, that's what people want. They're not interested as much in the philosophy, so I do like stuff on like science and technology and psychology, a lot of psychology
Sure,
stuff on studies of psychology, and then I'd throw in my like anarchy and morality in my original work here and there,
sure.
and uh,
That's
and then I
that's a good
focused more on
approach.
that after I abandoned all that fluffier stuff, and I focused more on the psychology and the morality and philosophy stuff. But
Sure. I think when you can reach more people, like one of the things I've noticed is I mean I do quite a number of things. I'm a musician, singer, dancer, and if you can draw people in with your personality, you can get them to like you. A lot of the times they will end up finding other things about you though, because this is what I do. It's like, oh wow, this person's into that. Maybe I should get into that. And because I think a lot of this is a cultural war. Granted, I think you and I we tend to focus on the intellectual truths in regards to what's going on. But a lot of the times it's about inspiring the population to actually value things like freedom, actually get people to think that individual sovereignty is actually a cool thing. Wanting to take personal responsibility is a cool thing. I think the problem with the snowflake generation is these things through pop culture aren't deemed of as being cool anymore. And like you were saying, with a lot of the what I call default liberals, they know so much that about things that are not true, and that's the problem. Therefore, they have these cracks in their reality when they're walking. But yeah, the issue is that they value, because there's so much pop culture that makes this stuff cool to know these false ideas. That's the status quo. And I think if people became more I think people like you, if you simply do things that you're passionate about, you become successful doing this kind of stuff, and people can look up to you and say, "Oh wow, Chris Nelson, this guy's talking about cool stuff about psychology and and veganism and whatnot." And I like this kind of stuff. Oh, well, check this stuff. He's talking about stuff about like a non-status world. Maybe I should look into that too. I mean, maybe this guy, yeah, maybe. I mean, if this guy was right about all this other stuff, maybe I should take a look at his other stuff. And that's kind of like my approach, because I think this is also a cultural war. If we're looking, I guess, at not just being right about what is most effective, I think it's important to realize like there's certain tactics that you can use to influence the masses. And one of them is like this culture, like start focusing on the arts, trying to make this stuff cool again. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Yeah.
but that's
But tell
one
me
of
what,
the one
sorry,
of
go
the
on.
core parts of why the COVID scamdemic is believed in, is because people aren't suffering enough, and that's where people are going to value truth more and go asking questions, because to get to want to consume knowledge and then gain an understanding and then use that to affect your actions and be wiser and gain wisdom, the knowledge part, to want to seek the truth, to get
Yeah.
to that point, to care for truth.
People are too
In
busy
our
watching
world,
Netflix. They don't
there's so
care
many
about, yeah.
distractions and entertainment
Yeah.
that they don't value it. So they're not asking questions. They're not curious. They don't doubt what they're told. They just accept what they're told. They don't question it. And they're not curious to go look into it themselves.
That's true.
And to get to that point, there needs to be a catalyzing event, which is sometimes it's suffering, or something needs to shock you. The catalyst needs to be a shock. So for a lot of people, it's going to need to be suffering. That's what I tell my partner. Well, people are going to wake up when things get worse. And the more, because chaos is a teacher, that's what one of the things Passio talks about, and I've understood it, demonstrated, is chaos is a teacher. The negative teaches. When bad things happen to you, you want to, a wise thing to do is understand why that negative thing happened, so that you don't repeat it, so that it doesn't happen to you again. Sometimes it's comes from you as a causal effect, so you don't want to repeat the same mistakes. And sometimes it's from the external world, so you want to not be caught off guard and succumb to that negative effect again in the future. So this is why the chaos teaches and the negative teaches, and things aren't bad enough for what they're willing to accept. Plus they're conditioned and they're brainwashed, and the mind control and the social engineering is so effective, as they've demonstrated. It is so effective that they can just put out bullshit and people are just going to believe it. And part of that is like, if you looked into, there's this interesting thing called the parasite stress theory, which has been talked about in psychology, and like Derek Broze wrote about it, and Ryan Christian of the Latin American Vagabond did videos on it. And so that's where the propensity for people, it's this threat, the parasite, which can be bacterial or viral, and this threat comes in to make people afraid. So you manipulate people through fear, and they're more willing to adopt authoritarianism and allow control in their life and remove freedom. And the decrease of freedom is an increase towards the opposite spectrum of slavery. And they're more willing to accept this because of the security they feel being alleviated from that fear, that danger that they perceive. So all they needed to do was create the perception of this ominous threat, this airborne plague, and then people would be willing to do whatever they're told because they believe that that's going to keep them safe. So the masks don't work, but hey, you got to wear masks because I believe they're going to work. And the vaccines aren't these experimental injections, these synthetic chemical pathogen-producing experimental injections. People believe they're going to do something, and if we just take these injections, then they're going to give us back our lives. And it's like, it's all this acquiescence to authority, and they just keep giving in because they believe they're going to be safe, or whatever freedoms have been removed. Well, that's only because of the virus. No, it's the government that did this all to you. The virus didn't do shit, or the alleged virus, whatever.
Yeah. I'm not sure what the situation is in Montreal right now, but I'm sure you guys are, of course, you're rolling out the vaccines, and I'm sure
we have a curfew.
You guys have got it hardcore at the moment. Like we had it, here in Melbourne, Australia, and when this thing first popped up, we were, I would say, one of the Western countries that had things like really under lockdown. Like for the first time in, I think, probably 100 years, we had like actual, I could be mistaken, but we actually had curfews. And I thought to me, that just sounds completely insane. But even further than that, they were telling us, we had to wear masks, telling us that, they essentially forced people to stay in hotels because of this whole quarantine nonsense and whatnot. And there are actually court cases going on at the moment. But I guess the crazy thing now is that there is this rollout of this vaccine, and they're very different narratives being told. On one side, this thing is perfectly safe. Essentially, no one has died from this thing. It's the safest vaccine ever, even though it's been created in the
5 months of testing, and then
and then
push
on the
it
other
out to
side,
the world because it's totally safe.
Like you've heard, obviously, no doubt, you're fully aware of this. But we've had literally DMX just recently died. And the thing is, we completely neglect the fact that the guy took the vaccine a week prior. And this is what his family is saying. And no, it was a drug overdose. Well, yeah, it was a drug overdose. It was vaccines, not a vaccine. It's a freaking pharmaceutical drug. And
it was
I'm
the
not
crack from when he was 14.
Yeah, but I don't want to. I don't want to make jest about this kind of stuff, because this is an individual, and it's tragic, right? But the thing is, the same thing has happened to, I think, was Marvin Hagler, like a famous boxer. Within a week of taking the vaccine, the guy passes away. Then there's a famous baseball player. They're actual celebrities that have died. And like the
But it's
idea that,
completely unrelated because the
yeah,
vaccine is safe. Vaccines are safe. And if you
but
say anything to the contrary, you're an idiot.
here's the
That's what
thing.
it comes down to.
So check this out. So Chris, now granted, right, like you and I, I'm sure we talk about how the general public, they're under cognitive distance, all that kind of stuff. But I truly believe, just based off of what's been going on in Australia lately, right? Like here in Australia, there was a massive massive amount of scheduled vaccinations, right, for the AstraZeneca jab, and like in mass, all these people have just declined the appointments because I think the truth is making its way out. There's so many people
Yeah.
like you and I that are talking about this stuff that it's at least creating doubt amongst the
That's the
masses.
thing
And
they fear, eh? Vaccine hesitancy. That's like number one enemy.
absolutely. And they know that despite the fact that they're saying that this stuff is perfectly safe, they don't want to risk their own lives. No one, no one. I mean, I have heard actually this Swedish woman say that she'd be willing to die in order to as like a
I think it was Norway.
yeah,
I,
that's right.
I
It's
wrote about
Norwegian.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. In order to save people, from this vaccine, it's like
I'd
every
be
war
happy
needs
to
its.
die from
Yeah,
getting a COVID injection.
absolutely. Yeah.
I'd be
Now,
honored.
I think
It's because
most
some people
people.
have to be sacrificed for the greater good.
Yeah, look, and in fairness, that is the I say liberal with hesitancy because this is the obviously the modern day version of it. Everything's been inverted.
Yes,
But
utilitarianism.
absolutely, but that's the general attitude. That's the general ethic of these default liberals. It's kind of like sacrifices need to be made, and like, yeah, I'm willing to take a shot. Stop being selfish. These freedom loving people. I
Yes,
mean,
don't be selfish, you grandma killer.
yeah, but that's I deep down, it's good to know that people are still motivated for their own health to the point where I think because there's so much damning information about this thing that a lot of people are just not going to go along with it. Here in Australia, the government was trying to get a 95% uptake of the jab, right? Apparently, the only people to be denying this thing would be people that had a medical exemption, but it's nowhere near come close to that, and it's crazy. My view is that it's going to reach a point where, yeah, they're going to start taking more drastic measures. I mean, they've just changed the meaning of things. Initially, this thing was going to be mandatory, right? This is what our great Lord and Savior Scott Morrison came out to say, but there was so much of a public backlash that he backpedaled and said, "Oh no, no, you misunderstood me. I just meant it's not going to be compulsory, as in we're not going to force you, but you just won't be allowed entry into certain establishments, and maybe you won't be allowed out of your house unless, of course, you get vaccinated." And then still a massive public backlash, and eventually comes and says, "Oh, it's voluntary." Changes the meaning of voluntary. Oh, we're just going to. I mean, now you can't. We're going to make it so that all of the the public servants essentially they have to take this stuff, but it's voluntary, and it's this game that's going on where you're inverting the meaning of things. Essentially, you're trying everything you can to get an uptake, to force people, coerce people to do this thing, but they're still finding it's not working. So, what do you think is going to be the next course of action? I mean, what are they doing in Canada right now? Are you guys just going ahead with the vaccines?
Yeah, people just love it. Well, a lot of people don't. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's a protest today, which my partner's gone to. Um, I'm just not a big fan of protests. Never have been.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, when do they listen to the protesters? Never. But voice your opinion and protest, and I'm totally supporting of it. I just don't participate in them. But
Sure.
she's there with a bunch of people, and she she views that as useful. So
Well, it's great that your
um,
your partner, you and your partner are on the same page. I mean, I understand she's a little hesitant to begin with in regards to the pandemic, but she obviously, I mean, obviously, the fact that you're sharing her all the information. What's it been like in terms of your other associations with this? Have you been gotten the cold shoulder from your friends and family because of the information you're putting out, not just on the blockchain, but in real life? Like, what's happening there?
yeah, some people are more like brainwashed into it, and some people less, and they just listen to the pressure from those people who are super afraid, and some of them like just don't believe in it, and yeah, so it's a mixed bag. But overall, like whatever the government says is what happens. So mandatory masks inside places now they've issued like Everyone's got to wear a mask outside. If you come into contact like less than 6 meters, then everyone has to have a mask outside, and even for sporting activities or some shit. And it's all retarded.
Yeah, that's
And
crazy,
people
man.
just
Good old
go along
Trudeau.
with it
The good
because
thing is,
they believe in the lie.
yeah, I mean, it to me, it's fascinating. Just having a look at this play out in different countries. There are very few countries, I think, that have taken a very staunch resistance. I mean, I think, in fairness, I think, at least from what I was observing, there'd been a lot of African countries where a lot of the leaders had actually openly said, "Look, I'm not in line with this thing. I don't believe in vaccines." I think the president of one, actually, there's been four presidents over the last year that have passed away. I say in inverted quotations, passed away, that were very anti-vaccine, anti what the World Health Organization was essentially trying to bring about in terms of the lockdowns and whatnot, and they've all ended up dead. Tanzania, that was the country that I wanted to mention specific. More recently, this guy died and was replaced with a president that was turns out to be far more in line with the World Health Organization. She's actually a member of the World Economic Forum and is very pro lockdowns, whereas the president that died was not, and had been openly saying that, look, now granted, some of the things that he was saying were kind of like questionable, like, the vaccines don't work. If you just take, steam and you pray to God, this thing, you'll be healthy. God will keep us healthy, which I think, in my opinion, is far more more likely than relying on anyway. I'm not going to go there. This video is obviously not going to, at least not in full segments, going to go on YouTube. But the bottom line is that it's very suspicious that these leaders have ended up, well, dead. And the African
Yeah,
countries, they've been, for the most part, though, we're seeing countries like Canada, Australia, the United States all play the same kind of game, lockdowns. It's like they're following the same kind of agenda. Oh, I wonder
oh
why,
yeah,
because
it's
they
it's
are.
all part of the plan. It's all part of the script and the whole World Economic Forum and Great Reset. Yeah, it's
Oh,
just a coincidence that old Boris talks about the
build
Build
back
Back
better.
Better.
Mm-hmm.
And then Biden's also Build Back Better, and they got signs for it. And then in Canada, the coward Trudeau was like, "This is an opportunity to build back better for a great
Absolutely.
da 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 and a great reset." Oh yeah, you couldn't be more obvious, but no, that's all a conspiracy theory. There is no great. There's still people talking about that, even though it's admitted from the World Economic Forum. Great Reset is a thing.
Well, I
No,
think
it's
that
in the
what people
documents, but it's all conspiracy. It doesn't exist.
people are actually changing their tune now and saying, "Oh no, no, we were never." This is what I'm finding. Oh no, we knew. But rather than focusing on the fact that this is a conspiracy theory, they're just getting angry at you. The fact, like, calling you a conspiracy theory for not wanting to take the vaccine, as opposed to calling you a conspiracy theorist for saying that the vaccine was going to be mandatory. Now it's flipped around. Oh, what? You're against the mandatory vaccine? Oh, you conspiracy theorist. And it's become a thing now. Like, I'm all about the
Yeah,
social
don't you
media.
want life to get back to normal? They promised us it would go back to normal. We got to
Yeah,
all take
two
the
weeks to flatten
vaccine.
the
And if we don't
curve.
all take it, we're not going to get normal back. So you're
Absolutely.
preventing normal from coming back. I hate
Oh,
you.
and there's this big divide that's going on in, like, I'm on a lot of these dating sites, right? And where is the thing in 2019 beforehand was this whole kind of, like, a lot of the girls, they use their gender pronouns like they, their, as how they want to be referred to, right? And now we're seeing these things where it's like, oh, if you're an anti-vaxxer, swipe left. Or I think the new norm is now going to be, oh, yeah, if vaccinated or not vaccinated, like, you can't be around me if you haven't been vaccinated. And look, granted, part of me is cool with that, because now you
Yeah,
can
you
figure
can
out the
filter
people that
them
are
too.
crazy. Yeah, but it's becoming ever more divisive. Like, you have a look at what's going on in Israel right now, and we have vaxpartheid. I mean, look,
Yeah,
this
it's
is,
it's whole discrimination thing.
yeah, and look,
Hugely
it's a
discriminatory.
tricky one, because here's the thing. This is my thought process around this thing. Because ultimately, let's say I do believe that this virus is incredibly dangerous, right? And I don't want you entering my store, my house, unless, of course, you put on a mask or you do X and Y. You know what I mean? Now, obviously, I would say you have a right to protect yourself. You may be a fucking idiot, in my opinion, and it's fucking crazy. However, it's 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 fucking gross, man. I mean, the alternative is to basically and I'm just trying to be, I'm trying to be like completely consistent with this kind of stuff, is to essentially tell people that they don't have a right to make choices for themselves. The issue I have is the fact that the government is coercing these businesses into applying these restrictions. Like here in Australia, businesses, unless of course they have people wear masks, won't. I mean, will get fined, things like that, you know. And a lot of these businesses might. Like one of my friend Lewis Mack actually just mentioned how, you know, he went to see a barber and the barber was saying, "Oh, look, mate, like can you just wear this mask? Because unless of course you wear this, I might get, you know, fine, you know, that kind of thing." So that's what we're dealing with, man. It's the core. I wish the government would just get out of the way, but the sad thing is that we are finding a situation where there are two segments of society. Now, that is not a good thing, in my subjective opinion. It sucks. And the only way to cure that is information truth. But at the end of the day, I don't see any other alternative besides forcing people to see the truth. You know what I mean? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, you can't force people to see the truth because it's all their consciousness and their ability to desire to consume the information and recognize it
Yeah, sure.
for the validity of that it's veracious, it's an accurate representation of reality, in contrast to some other information which is demonstrably less accurate. Whether it's completely true or not, you can usually discern between two pieces which one is more or less likely to be true, even if you can't necessarily verify it yourself. But
True. But there's so much, as I'm sure you're aware, so much of a psyop that's taking place that it's becoming more difficult for people to see the truth, even though it's obvious. You know, there's obviously the confirmation bias, then there's the fear, and people just don't. I mean, I know what happens to me when I, you know, when you had that flight or flight response, you know, and you can't, like, typically I'm pretty articulate, you know, but when I get angry, I can't form my sentences as clearly, and you know, you don't. I know when I'm playing Call of Duty with my friends, and I'm like, I'm feeling this sense of rush, like I can't shoot properly, and I feel like on a level, perhaps not as on an acute level, but it's happening to the general public at this point in time. They're inundated with fear 24/7, and it's filtering how they view reality because they're so concerned about what might happen to their auntie down the road. They're willing to look at the reality that if you compare what's going on right now with previous years, that huh, maybe this thing is not quite as bad as it has been played out on the mainstream news. So yeah, it's I mean, well, you mentioned, I think, in one of your videos and one of your writings that when you saw this thing, or maybe you told me, sometimes I can't discern between where I get information, but when you saw this thing play out, you know, back in March, I guess last year, you were pretty skeptical uh, in regards to what was going on. I think a lot of us bought into. I mean, around the time I saw people in China dropping dead, I was like, okay, maybe this thing is pretty serious. You know, that's when I started researching plagues and mortality rates, and I'm like, all right. I mean, granted, my principles aren't changing, but yeah, I'm gonna be cautious about this thing. But what we've seen now is, I mean, I'm not seeing anyone dropping dead in the streets. I'm having a look at the mortality rate, only maybe a few hundred people. And even that, I mean, the CDC came out to report that only 6% of the mortalities were actually directly from COVID 19. This is a few months back. And I think it's pretty obvious to see that this thing is not that, but people still won't make that connection. And I don't know, it's because whether or not the media is doing such an amazing job, obviously they are, but or whether or not it's just people's willingness to accept something that, I mean, I have this view that there's the law of first report, that when you attach yourself to an ideology or a story, you're more inclined to accept that as the truth, even when better
yeah,
information comes down the line. And people are so caught up with, oh, I don't want to be wrong. Oh no, I accept, because I thought this thing was a lot more serious than, and you know, I bought the narrative that, oh, I mean, I didn't know anything about it. I'm thinking, oh, this thing's going to be a lot more serious, and I still don't have all the facts, but the information now to me shows that, oh, this thing is nowhere near as severe, as least based off of what I'm seeing. But I guess the distinction between our position, Chris, and the majority of the public is that it still isn't going to change our principles. And this is what it always comes down to for me. Like, at the end of the day, I don't care if 99% of people are dropping dead with this thing. I still don't think what the government is doing is justified in terms of eroding all of our freedoms, forcing us to stay in our homes, taking away our livelihoods, and saying that they're doing it for the greater good, and then bringing about the state of emergency that can be brought about anytime, anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's up to you to discern what steps you want to take to protect yourself. So if you view yourself as at risk, well, then go ahead and lock yourself into your home. Go ahead and wear a mask in your home. Eat with a mask, shower with a mask, whatever. That is your choice to do whatever you want to try to protect yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But then the government, obviously, they want to control everything. And that's what people support because the control makes them feel safe because they view everyone else as everyone is a threat now. Everyone's a threat. So
Everyone's a
you, by
walking
your
threat.
very existence, you could have COVID and not know it because the lie of asymptomatic spread, which is bullshit, but they believe in it. And it's all, like you said, the law of first report. But there are actual biases, they're cognitive biases if you look into them. I don't remember the exact names, but there's like three of them which are interrelated, and it has to do, I know one of them, because I used to, in the early times of Steemit, I was doing this thing on fallacies and cognitive biases. So I was explaining all these things,
I've seen some of
but I
those.
didn't continue. I stopped at like, I was going A, B, C. I was going to do all the alphabet, but I stopped at like C or D or something. So there's a lot. One of them is the anchoring effect. So whatever first, and there's like a attention bias. So whatever first thing you receive, like regarding a topic, well, that's
Mm-hmm.
going to be your anchor. And then you're anchored around that. And then you'll revolve around that initial position. And things that are contradictory to it, well, you have a bias, a tendency to reject it because it doesn't conform to that initial piece of information to which you've anchored yourself to. And this is what we use as our form to form our perception of reality, our worldview, and often our self view. So we take in information that becomes part of what we perceive is reality, what is true. So this false information got fed to people, this fear porn, fear, 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 this is so bad. And then they anchored themselves to that. And a lot of people haven't been able to let go of that anchor and reposition themselves in their perception of reality based on more accurate information. So, the Ferguson thing and 2 million and 200 million, 200,000 in the UK and whatever. And that was all bullshit. And you can look into the data and it's like Sweden's a
Exactly.
perfect example of how that prediction just fell through. And
This
it
whole
was, oh,
thing
well,
is
that's because of the lockdowns and the masks. And we're because we listened to Ferguson, we were saved. Yeah, but no, just look at Sweden. There's the example. They predicted this. They were wrong by 30 orders of magnitude of 32 or something, 35. And it's bullshit. But people don't get the information because the only source of information they trust is the mainstream media.
all the science. I mean, you got to trust the science. That's what we say here in Australia. It seems though
Yeah.
that the
If it
science
comes
is,
from the mainstream media, you can't
yeah,
trust the scientists and the medical experts that are contrary to the mainstream media and contrary to the government position, because
exactly.
those guys they're not the approved and authoritative scientists and medical experts. So you can't listen to them.
Sure. You got to listen to the priesthood, right? Yeah, it's cult of
Yeah,
scientism. It's become
the
like that.
white coat priesthood.
Absolutely. Chris Nelson, we are on the same page with this kind of stuff, and bro, I could not say that I support your activism more, man. You're a scholar, a gentleman, and I appreciate you putting out this content. I know you've been doing this for a long time, and at times you may feel that your work is not valued, at least on the Hive blockchain. And nonetheless, brother, I think we got to keep on soldiering on, and I think the right people will see the kind of information, and all it takes is one spark to light a fire, brother. So kudos to what you've
Yeah.
been doing, bro. Is there anything you wanted to kind of cover, talk about? I feel like we've gone through a lot of stuff. The Hive, the philosophies around everything that's going on. Um, first of all, how can people get a hold of your work?
Yeah, that's evolveconsciousness.org. And well, that doesn't have like everything, but it has the most important stuff relating to truth and morality and consciousness, the
Mm-hmm.
original work I've done. I've posted some COVID stuff there, and Hive is like where I post
Obviously, Hive.
Some
Yeah.
of the stuff I've done there, and I posted on Hive, and I've just basically the COVID stuff. I've just been posting it there. Not lately. So lately, like my content isn't very interesting unless you're interested in like decentralized finance and
Oh,
financial freedom
that's right,
stuff.
man.
Then
That's the one thing I wanted to kind of, perhaps if you just want to briefly just cover that, because you mentioned you've started a project called Leo Finance, right? And that's
oh
connected
no,
to the
that's
Hive.
not mine.
That's not
I've
yours.
been helping.
You've been helping.
I'm helping to code one thing called the Leo Bridge, which is going to bridge. Um, so you have the Ethereum, you have a bunch of different blockchains, but
Sure.
they're all isolated within their blockchain. And then the exchanges take your money, and then they'll exchange with different wallets and different blockchains
Mm-hmm.
for you, and then that's how all that works. But
Sure.
so there's two main decentralized finance blockchains. One's Ethereum, the number two crypto, and then there's Binance, which was an exchange who created their own token, and then eventually they created a fork of Ethereum and modified the code to make it delegated or proof of stake instead of proof of work, which is what Bitcoin and Ethereum are founded on. So Binance created the Binance sidechain as a fork of Ethereum, and Binance's coin BNB like jumped up in January. If you go look at the charts for BNB, like I didn't know why, and it's the number three crypto right now, and it wasn't before. And all of a sudden, it became number three because people started catching on. Well, they're doing, they started doing the whole decentralized finance thing, which got Ethereum up to like the 1000s earlier this year. Now it's at like 2000. But Binance, a company, it's not a decentralized blockchain, but they started doing that themselves, and it became really popular. And the fees are lower because they get to, like, just on the 7th, they lowered their fees by half because their token BNB went up in value, so they reduced the fees. Ethereum is like super slow to make changes because they're decentralized and it's not a centralized authority to make the decisions. So they still haven't corrected the fees. That's why sometimes you'll have like $1,000 fee or something on something, and it's like ridiculous, the fees. So Binance is really attractive in the Binance sidechain for decentralized finance. And you have the two main things, one for Ethereum and one for the Binance sidechain. You have Uniswap. This is the whole decentralized DeFi craze that's happening in 2020 and now 2021. It's going to bring a lot more people into crypto as I see it. It's going to help mainstream more the crypto than just Bitcoin's popularity. Is this decentralized finance, which further empowers people into financial independence and the ability to like make money.
Sure. So as far as Leo Bridge, that's
Yeah, I
playing
didn't
all
finish
over.
that. That was
Yeah,
to
sorry.
bridge
Yeah.
Ethereum with
Bridge
the
topics,
Binance sidechain.
topics there.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. So Leo Finance was, so on Hive, there was a thing called, developed by one of the witnesses, Agro, called Hive Engine. It was
Yeah.
formerly Steve Engine. And there you could create your own tokens. So, and then you could pay them to like create a site for your token. So this guy, Khalil Kazi, created Leo Finance, and then he created the token there. And then eventually, rather than the default site, which looks like hive.blog, he created his own site. And then he's kept going from there and developing. And then he brought Leo into W Leo, which is a wrapped Leo, which is what started like last year, where you could wrap tokens from other chains onto Ethereum, and they'd have the same value, and they'd just get exchanged one for one value. So you have like WBTC, so that's Bitcoin but wrapped for the Ethereum, and then you can
Yeah.
exchange on the Ethereum as if you were exchanging, trading with or moving around Bitcoin, but it's not Bitcoin, it's W Bitcoin. And
Yeah.
so
Are
he
you
did a
familiar with
W.
atomic swaps?
What?
Are you familiar with the concept of atomic swaps? That's something that is pretty much I think identical to that was supposed to be happening on the Bitcoin. I think it was Bitcoin Cash blockchain at some point, where essentially you'd have one rather need you wouldn't need an exchange. Essentially, you can just transfer from one cryptocurrency to any other, just like that, without having to use an exchange. It sounds like I
Yeah,
thought
I
that.
guess it's similar.
Yes, that was
But
very
if
similar.
that,
Yeah.
like, that's what EOS was supposed to be too. Dan was like, oh yeah, EOS is going to be it's a blockchain to interconnect all blockchains. That didn't go anywhere. I don't know what happened with that, but he has since left EOS. But yeah, so that, like, this interoperability between blockchains is valuable because you can exchange tokens rather than depending on a centralized exchange like Binance or Upbit or Bitrex or whatever all the other ones are.
Okay.
You can use another platform or create your own where you could interact between the two blockchains without having a centralized infrastructure. So whoever's going to be building the interoperability, it'll be like centralized in some way. It could be a blockchain which is more decentralized than centralized, or so
Sure.
the Leo bridge is, it's obviously not yourself that's running it, but it's the core team, like the founder, he's pretty reliable. Um, it's to exchange between Ethereum and the Binance chain by
Sure.
going through the Hive blockchain. So it should potentially make Hive more popular and
Well, that's
bring
great.
more value to Hive and Leo and everyone that uses it. And it'll just make things easier to go between one and the other.
Will you need
And
any, the KYC, any of that stuff? Because I mean,
no, that's
yeah,
exactly why
that's
decentralized finance is
mhm,
good, because fuck the government and no tax
exactly.
bullshit and no
Yeah.
KYC. So all these places, like, there's, for Ethereum, the big DeFi thing was Uniswap.
Hmm.
And in BSC, the Binance sidechain, there was PancakeSwap. And then there's all these PancakeSwap clones that just pop out all the time, and some of them are scams. Like, they'll get people to invest and pay deposit fees, and then they'll,
Go
what's
along the
called
bottom.
pulling the rug, and then
Yeah.
they just take all your money and they're like, thanks suckers, and then you lose all your money. So you got to be
Mm,
careful. But the
mm,
Leo Finance founder, he created one called Cub DeFi, and that's what I got into. And that's how I've been learning about this, because I didn't know about all the DeFi thing. I've been ignoring it. I was like, okay, yeah, there's this DeFi thing, decentralized finance, and I've just been ignoring it for the past year. But now I've gotten into it, and
yeah.
so you got to be careful what you get into, and
No.
always
Well,
careful
what
what you do with your
advice?
money, and don't invest what you're not willing to lose and all that stuff there. But if
Great
you
stuff.
know what the project is about and who founded it and what they're about and where they're trying to go, and then you can put more trust in it, and it's not just, they're not just going to take your money. So I'm pretty confident in Cub DeFi, and it's a good way to, if you have crypto of like pretty much any kind, you can put it there and put it to work for you, where you can earn an APR, like an interest rate based on what you stake, and you can take it out right away. So it's not like Hive or Leo Finance, where your stake is used to upvote content, and then it's locked in for like a month, or on Leo it's a month, and on Hive it's 13 weeks. On Cub DeFi, if you want to take your tokens out, you can just do it. A few clicks and boom, and you got it back in your hands. So
Sounds
it's
awesome.
it's really advantageous to move around your money in the form of a cryptocurrency token and use it to earn for you. So you stake it somewhere, and then you earn in the native Cub token,
Oh.
which helps to drive up the price of Cub. So as more people invest in like Cub DeFi, or for example, there's Uniswap and PancakeSwap.
Hmm.
PancakeSwap is at like $12 or $14. So they gain value the more people invest in it to try to, use their money to make money. That's the point too. So it's not like you're going to do a job. It's you're taking the money you have and then you're putting it somewhere, and then it's going to earn uh, a return on investment, an APR percentage, like an interest for you, by letting it in these farms or these dens, what they're called. And based on the percentage, you'll get more than another farm or den, which has a lesser percentage. And based on the price going up or down, you'll get more or less. And so there's all these complexities to understand, which I've tried to explain in my recent posts.
Hmm.
And some people value it, and obviously some people don't value it.
Well, I think
Um,
people value it when it just works, they, because a lot of people like myself don't understand, don't want to have to figure out how all of this stuff goes on. I mean, it's fantastic you being able to explain all this stuff to me, and uh, it's valuable to me because I want to get, I need to, but for the most part. I think people just want to be able to use stuff that works, whether it's Leo Bridge or whatever it is. Know that they don't have to go through all of this laborious process to invest their money. And once we get to a stage like that, and that's what I loved about the stuff that you're doing. It's all facilitating this situation where people can just use this stuff without having to be computer nerds, you know. And once we get to that point, that's going to not only drive obviously the price of value of crypto, Hive, these platforms, but it's also going to help people to move away from Facebook, these legacy media systems, and it's going to spread more information, which is eventually going to lead to more truth, which is what this whole thing is about, right? At
Yeah.
least that's the way I see
Well,
it.
hope.
Hopefully.
I don't know if it's going to lead to more truth, but
Well, with more opportunities for well for
it'll
truth.
lead to greater financial freedom for people who get into this stuff.
Yeah,
But
but I'm talking about
and
in terms
then
of platforms like Odyssey and these platforms where people can actually share this kind of content. I mean, obviously,
yeah, and less
less
censorship, and you'll
censorship
have
means
more
more.
exposure to the information as opposed to
Yeah,
YouTube, which censors the information, and so then you can't even be exposed to it to then potentially
exactly.
access it and then consume that information to then change how you perceive the world and change your behavior and actions in the world. Yeah, they're definitely more empowering to promote greater freedom and morality in the world for sure.
Absolutely. So, Chris, brother, to close this off, bro, if you had to say something to the world right now, like you're closing off message to the world in terms of, or anyone that's perhaps wanting to get involved in like a social media platform or truth for that matter, I mean, what would be your recommendation and what would be your advice to them?
Well, I guess if you're into video, Odyssey is a good place. It's on the library blockchain, and there's a reward mechanism there. I don't think it's as lucrative as Hive. And if you're into video and you want to try Hive, you can get to 3speak.tv. That's with the number three and the word speak.tv. I know you've been trying it out lately.
Yeah, man, it's cool.
And yeah, so that's the reward mechanism of Hive, but it's you can upload videos, and if you don't use that and you just want to do text, or you can do photos or blog about other stuff, and I don't know, recipes. There's communities for a bunch of stuff, and there's people looking for the stuff that they're interested in, that they want to reward. And you could earn, rather than a few cents, or rather than earning zero on Facebook or whatever other site or YouTube, you can try out Hive and 3Speak or whatever, and you can try to find communities that are interested in the same thing as you are, and then you can support that community through comments and content. And your upvote won't matter much in the beginning, but by networking with people, you can gain support, and then you can get rewarded for your content. So you might get a few cents at first, and then it could be a few dollars. And getting $2 for your posts is better than getting zero on Facebook or on your own blog or whatever. So there might not be much, but depends on luck and your networking and how much people like you or your content, and you can get support. So it takes work, to gain support. Um, but if you're looking for more financial freedom, and a way to maybe earn a few bucks, and put in the time to I guess develop your brand, is a way to put it, to develop your brand on another platform, then you can join hive.blog or peakd.tv or 3speak, peakd.com or 3speak.tv, and try to find like-minded people, whatever you're interested in, that support the same things.
Awesome. All right. Well, Chris Nelson, my brother, my intellectual soul, brother from another mother, thank you so much for all this information. You are a scholar, a gentleman. I love the light that you're shining in the world. I love the technology that you are helping to perpetuate. And bro, I just want to say thank you. I will add that one of the other cool things about being on Hive and these other communities is you get to meet cool brothers like yourself. That are obviously interested in like-minded things. And that's one of the great things about this space. It's a community of like-minded people, who, at least to some extent, care about freedom. And it's a great opportunity to collaborate with people like that, and just to be around like minds, particularly in these times, where it's becoming all the more important with all this social distancing that is going on. So yeah, I just wanted to close that up, bro. We're reaching about 2 hours, which is a good point for this podcast. I'll be sure to share your links. You mentioned evolution.evolve. What was it? What was the name of the site that you mentioned again that you have all your stuff on?
Yeah, evolveconsciousness.org.
Evolveconsciousness.org. Obviously, you're on Hive and Facebook and YouTube and all that. I'll put your links on this video. But brother, thank you so much for taking out the time to have a discussion with the chocolate Nubian soul brother. That's me. That's what I call myself. And yeah, until next time, man. I'd love to do this again, man, at some point. But thank you once again.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And,
not a problem. Pleasure, brother.
Let me know anytime. Sounds good.
Fantastic.
Good weekend.
Same with you. Have an awesome day, brother, and keep spreading the word, the knowledge, the truth bombs.
Yeah, you too.
Peace.
Peace.
All right, so ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. That was the interview with Chris Nelson, the scholar, the teacher, the content creator, amongst many other things. Be sure to like this video, subscribe, click on the bell. You know the drill. And until next time, this is the Crucial Journey. Surya Namaskara. Namaste. Ow!
What is liberty?
What the? Who says you can't build muscle on a vegan diet?
What's it like being a hottie in the vegan community? There are no political solutions, only technological ones.
The economics of the system don't allow multiple competing systems to survive.
Engineering, technology, these arts of humanity, they are magic.